I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
And welcome everybody to the Libertarian Podcast Review. I'm still not determined on the actual name there. We'll get working on that. This is Tyler Yonke, and I welcome you, everyone. So what do we do here? We take podcasts on the liberty-leaning world, and we review them. We review them for you so that you can maybe decide if this is the autistic Liberty Star you really want to know. We're going to compile and give you a heads up on all the libertarian influencers out there in the movement, maybe help you understand who's good, who's not, but we're going to break those down and hopefully have some guests as well. This is, I believe, episode 4 or 5. We're just cruising along here. Today, I'm going to do a clip. What did Dave Smith miss? This was an episode that he did, 663, on the Dave Smith Part of the Problem podcast. Big fan of him. And he did a thing with Robbie the Fire Bernstein, his some often co-host, about 90% of the time there. A little thing about, or with, I should say, Bill Maher. And the Bill Maher, I think it was one of his last episodes of the year. And of course, then Bill Maher has Camille Foster on last week, who killed it. And Camille has been getting a lot of kudos for everybody in the kind of the right-leaning libertarian world. And I think he did fine. And Camille could have actually commented on this clip as well. And so I'm going to get in some of my own history. So I thought maybe we'd just jump right into, this is clip 663. You can find it on the Gas Digital Network. Dave Smith. I'm going to watch and comment on Dave Smith and Robbie the Fire commenting and watching Bill Maher. Okay. I hope everyone gets that, right?
Hey, it's our last show of the season. Screw the rules. Tonight I'd like to tell you a tale of Dr. William Miller, the American preacher whose teachings spawned the Seventh-day Adventist religion of today. In the 19th century, Miller grew an enormous following by telling anyone who'd listen that he could, by reading the Bible and then applying his own math, predict the exact date for the second coming, Jesus' big return to show business. Which, good news, bad news, also meant the world would be coming to an end. So peaking in the early 1840s, William Miller's rallies attracted thousands of people, all focused on this one idea, that the world was going to end on his predicted date of October 22nd, 1844. That is the day the world would come to an end. Spoiler alert, it did not. Christ totally blew them off. He was supposed to show up and just flaked. Typical. Now, when you stake your whole religion on one all-important prophecy that doesn't come true, the logical reaction from followers should be, well, I guess that was a bunch of bullshit. But no, this sect doubled down, and to this day refers to October 22nd, 1844 as the Great Disappointment. Because, of course, it's disappointing when the world doesn't end, but the important thing is that you didn't let your faith be shaken in the guy who got it dead wrong. Okay, so by now you're saying, Bill, what the fuck does this have to do with what's going on in the world?
All right, let's pause it right there.
Now I would let Dave go on and do his thing, but you can watch Dave, and Dave does a fantastic job of actually breaking down the problems with what Bill Maher is actually saying there. And but I just thought I would kind of clip here, kind of Bill Maher's actual stuff that he's going off on, and then make some comments. One thing I want to say there real quick is, and I'll get into the William Miller and his whole issue in a little bit, but this is so fantastic. Just saw today on Twitter, Tom Woods has been doing things, Maxine Waters had said early on when Trump was first elected about crowding, Republicans, going out to the dinner where they're at, and make them feel uncomfortable. So someone repurposed all those as Andrew Cuomo quotes, and the left is just going crazy about it, especially after this insurgence. How can you do this? I just want to say his comments here, while we understand they're going to be about Trump, they can be about the left, Al Gore, predictions of climate change and the destruction of the world. AOC, they've done all these same things. They've said it's going to, end in 12 years. It's going to end in 5 years. Al Gore made all his predictions in his Inconvenient Truth movie and documentary, and they didn't come true. We have not put them under the same thing of, being some sort of cult that has had predictions come wrong. And yet the great disappointment, New York City is not underwater. All right, let's go back to some more Dave Smith here.
Look at them as backwards 1840s cult members. That's your thought about them. So why are they supporting the guy? Like it's why would all these Christians support Donald Trump? Well, I don't know, because you clearly hate their guts and he's against you. So there's your answer. At least a big part of it. How do you not see that? How are you searching for the answer to this question and you can't see the one staring you in the face? Oh yeah. It's like if I were going like, there's some group of people who hated me and I was like, why do these fucking retard little dick faggots hate me so much? And you're like, oh, maybe it's because I think they're retard little dick faggots. Like that might have something to do with it, right? That could probably inspire some hatred. All right, anyway, let's keep playing.
Well, recently there's been another large group of people who had a great disappointment.
And showing people from Trump rally.
And will not accept their loss. And the challenge for us is, how do you get people out of a cult, especially when every time you present evidence of what is obvious reality, they take it as proof of you being in on a conspiracy to destroy them?
All right, hit pause it, right? So
I'm not going to go down all of Dave's machinations with this, but once again, when you're talking about people being in a cult, as Dave rightly said, you start to really question, everything you're going to about unity and all these other things. Oh, let's continue.
Being in on a conspiracy to destroy them. And for the answer to that question, we must turn to, and I'm sure many of you have already guessed who I'm going to say now, Catherine Oxenberg. Yes, Catherine Oxenberg, actress, star of Dynasty, European royalty, and lady in front of you at Whole Foods. Catherine Oxenberg.
Not at my Whole Foods.
She got somebody out of a cult, and I know about 70 million other Americans I'd like her to talk to. Now, if you don't know what I'm referring to, Catherine Oxenberg was recently featured in not one, but 2 documentaries about a cult called NXIVM that brainwashed her daughter, India. NXIVM was led by a con man, now serving 120 years, named Keith Raniere, a.k.a. Vanguard. That's the name he gave himself, Vanguard. And as I was watching this documentary, I couldn't stop thinking that Raniere, Vanguard, reminded me of someone, but I couldn't put my finger on who. For example, like most cult leaders, Vanguard had an extraordinary need to be surrounded by ass-lickers telling him how great he was.
Has your being a part of my life enhanced my life? I don't have words to tell you how much it has.
A heartfelt tribute to Vanguard. You make it possible for us to grow ourselves every day into the people that we want to be.
A very amazing man in many, many, many ways.
Who did that remind me of?
I don't know that I've ever been more proud to be standing next to you, Deb.
Thank you, President Trump, for allowing us to have you as our president.
You're living up to everything I thought you would. You're one heck of a leader.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and I'm just going to chime in here real quick. And while I totally agree, those are, sycophant type of comments, and you can take some of those a little bit out of context. Can we go back to the days of Obama and remember the ridiculous comments, the little kids singing, people after crying when Trump was elected? I had friends on Facebook, with their 9-year-old kid. My kids are mourning. How did this happen? George Stephanopoulos, his own wife, Alexandria Wentworth, she used to be a comedian. She was on In Living Color with Drew Carey. She was the white girl in there. She said how her kids were like crying, and it was just like a over the top, complaint about this. So it goes both ways, and it's disgusting no matter who is doing it. So let's skip just a little bit further here, and we will see last bit that Bill Maher has to say here, I think.
More minutes, then we'll wrap up.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes, Vanguard's followers believed he was the demonstrably single smartest person in the world because he told them. He told them he spoke in full sentences when he was 1. And also that he invented his own math, just like Dr. William Miller. And both Trump's and Vanguard's status as cult leaders sprang from their creation myths as off-the-charts business savants, when in reality, Vanguard's consumer byline business was a pyramid scheme shut down by the state of New York and about as successful as the 3 casinos Trump drove into bankruptcy in the 90s. Oh, and they both started fake schools. And then there's the fact that both men were such unrepentant sex creeps that they literally could not stop themselves from bragging about it.
If we conquer a woman, if we grab the thing we want to fuck, whatever it is, and fuck it, and if we do whatever we want, and they like it.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want.
All right, one quick pause right here. Vanguard seems pretty badass. Just saying. Vanguard's Robbie the Fire's new hero. All right,
That's the
let's keep
point.
playing.
Yeah, you didn't notice that? Okay. It seemed rather parallel to me. And like all cult leaders, they had to have that one queen bee around them who they deputized to recruit others into their sick games. Vanguard had Smallville actress Allison Mack. Trump has Lindsey Graham.
Okay, the first good joke.
And, you know, when you're fighting a cult, you're not just fighting the leaders, but all the enablers who see you as an enemy. Truth is a threat to them. That's why what Catherine Oxenberg did was so instructive. You've heard the phrase, hate the sin, love the sinner. Well, she practiced hate the cult, love the cultist. She didn't scream at her daughter that she was stupid. She didn't cut her off. She just kept trying to remind her of who she used to be. I think we need to try that on QAnon. You know, the ones who believe that rich liberals are running a massive pedophile ring and eat babies, and in some cases are really lizard people wearing a human mask. And they were as sure that Trump was going to win re-election as Dr. Miller's followers were that the world was going to end in 1844. They were told to trust the plan, that Trump would get a second term devoted to busting the Democratic sex trafficking ring. But now on message boards, we can see they have doubt and despondency. One of them wrote, "My faith is shaken. I followed the plan. Trump lost. What now?" What now? Opportunity to lift the scales from their eyes. But it's not going to happen from mocking them or calling them stupid or making smart remarks like, if Kamala Harris really is a lizard person, why didn't she eat that fly on Mike Pence's head? Don't do that. I'm saying don't do that. No, really.
All right, we can pause it there, and that's
And I will as well. And that seemed really effeminate there, Bill Maher, at the last thing. So a few things to come up with. One is you're talking about getting someone out of a cult, and the mom loved the daughter, but not the cult, and how that was done. I mean, everything's a cult to both sides. I really believe that the state is a cult, and look at kids calling out their parents and getting them to the FBI, reporting them to the FBI for the insurgency thing that happened at the Capitol. That's also one deal. And this just grabbing by the pussy and those, this is one thing that really drove me away from Trump. Once again, I just don't hate him like the left does because they're just as crazy. Was that the right under Clinton made a big deal about his indiscretions with Monica Lewinsky, which I think were much worse than what Trump was, in the tape there, because he's just saying, whatever. And that suddenly when this tape comes out, the right is defending him and the left is appalled. And I'm like, he's running against Hillary Clinton. This isn't such a far-fetched thing to remember how disgusting her husband was. And suddenly the left is like up in arms. I'm like, but she made all these comments about Monica and dragging dollar bills through trailer parks and these horrible women, vast right-wing conspiracy. you're forgetting about that. And then the right, bringing on the preachers and everything, and they seem to be fine. So once again, the hypocrisy is a problem. And I hate the people that say you can't use whataboutism. Whataboutism is a simple process of using past performance and standards that we've gone through with there to predict and to show how we're going to go in the future. In law, we have latches, we have these other defenses of estoppel, which is you've let something go on, or it was maybe criminal or violated your property at one time, but you didn't do anything about it. And so you've kind of set a standard. That's in a one sense of whataboutism. You don't think they go back, but it's fine to argue that these things happened previously and to use them in pointing out the hypocrisy on their own side. So the whataboutism type of thing is a people's ability to try to block any type of bad behavior on their own side and just point it out going ahead. Okay, so let's get into some of this. One, the cultish issue with the Bill Maher doesn't understand here with the climate change. I think that has a big thing wrapped into it. But what did Dave Smith miss? And Camille Foster could have talked to Bill Maher about on this situation, which it wasn't the topic, so he wouldn't when he was on the show, which is the issue about the Millerites and William Miller and the Great Disappointment. Being a Seventh-day Adventist, I have a lot of info about this. And the first reaction to this was, this is a complete wrong story, and no one, kudos to Dave. He didn't take on the religious aspect of this. He just took on Bill Maher's kind of insane way of calling everyone into a cult and then saying we're going to embrace you afterwards when you're kind of living in a cult yourself. William Miller was part of this, came out of the Baptist movement, and they had the Millerites. And it was, like he said, 1844, October something, they're going to have this, he does this math and he predicts when it's going to happen. And there was some changes, different dates that had been changed already. It comes about in 1844. It doesn't happen, and it is called the Great Disappointment. Now, what Bill Maher gets completely wrong, and I think it goes against his whole logic here, is the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which he said was formed by Miller. Yes, there was a part of that. They actually came about because they didn't want to be associated with William Miller and his Great Disappointment, and the fact that he was calling this, the end that was going to be here. They're like, fine, we're not going to be a part of it. Matter of fact, this church wasn't even invented until 1863. Remember, his Great Disappointment was in 1844. So you have a difference there. William Miller dies 1849 or something like that. And so the church actually comes about after the fact and in response to this insane, idea. And matter of fact, the church now believes that, we don't know the time, date, or whatever of the thing. So here, Bill Maher completely distorts the truth. He goes into no one's going to fact check him on this religion thing. And he creates a narrative intentionally that's false, right? He equates Q with all Trump supporters, and his own analogy, he's massively distorting what the fact is and the truth. And it counters his actual narrative. And they wonder why the right voted for Trump, because he establishes a fake story. He's incorrect about the way it goes about. And then he uses it against the other party to bash them. This is completely what we're talking. He compares the Seventh-day Adventist Church to Trump supporters, and then calls the church a cult as a result. I'm not upset about him, calling the church anything. You can do whatever. I don't really care because I don't give my life goals and everything on that. So your crazy sycophant followers are only Trump, are only following Trump, I guess, because he's never seen anything crazy on the right. So try to love this is my favorite here. Try to love the cultist and hate the cult, like on Q. But your side is encouraging kids, turning their parents from storming the castle in Bill's own way. He's trying to reach across the aisle, I guess. But Robbie the Fire did have the best comment at the end. He said, did the 1845 get a rain date? 44, did they get a rain date? Yes. They did not, actually, because the church created themselves out of this and had nothing to do. So once again, it would be like this. Al Gore has the climate thing, what does he call that thing? Inconvenient truth. And he sets it so that there's going to be an end date, and the date doesn't come about. So what happens to the left? They say, we're done with this. This guy is a bunch of bullshit. We're not going to go down this prediction path anymore. We're not going to follow on this. And they change paths. That would be the proper analogy, but that isn't happening. It's not happening for the right. It's not really happening for the left. And sadly for Bill Maher, he makes up a story. He changes facts. And in the result, in the end, he looks like the one. Look, I say Camille Foster, former 7th Adventist. He could have given a little speech on this as well. He did not, because he did not, this didn't come out. Anyway, thanks everybody. Hope you enjoyed this last episode and a little breakdown with Dave Smith. Appreciate it. See you next time.